Okay, and we are now recording. By the way, I did want to mention that you guys are welcome to record at any point too, if you would prefer to have your own demo, your own copy of things. And you're welcome to do that also in the one-on-ones that we have. So just a quick reminder. All right, so the bangle. We were talking about a couple different things that we were hoping to work with. I'm going to start with some of the requests that we got as far as what we want to work on here are SubD. So we're going to start with that. And one of the things that is important to when you're working with SubD is to be able to select the sub objects. And for that reason, I always have and it isn't just for that reason. This is actually a really powerful tool when you're working is your selection filter. And you can bring that up by typing selection filter. I'm going to close it right now and I'll show you what it looks like when you do that. Selection filter. Yeah, okay. So if I start to filter, and you can see, our suggestions that come up here, selection filter. And now it's like a floating panel. I could dock it over here. I could dock it, down the bottom. I like to dock it right up top here. That's where I'm used to seeing it. If you want to have this and have it in a different spot, that's fine. Whatever works for you. We know that this can be a very tough workspace sometimes. And so you have to do what's comfortable for you. So by having this up, I can now bring up the I can click on sub objects. That way, when I have my SubD up, I can work there. And obviously too, as you may know, we have a SubD menu. The SubD menu has a lot of interesting tools in it that relate to creating and manipulating subdivision surfaces. That's what SubD is short for, subdivision surface. We also have the SubD tool tab. Where is our SubD tool tab? Oh my goodness, is it like missing? So weird, panels. Okay, I'm not seeing it. I'm gonna have to find it. Layer states. No, let's do with something else. Anyway, I'll figure out how that's set view. So odd. I mean, actually, there's a bunch of them right here. These, oh, you know what I did? I docked it. That's what I did. That's why I can't see it. Normally, it would be here, right? You would have it right in with these here. Okay. Oh, so weird. Anyway, I pulled it out and docked it. I'm going to keep it docked underneath the others, and that's why they were all there. I do apologize. I probably did that in a previous demo and forgot I did it. So the great thing about doing that is I could do this with actually any of these tool tabs, but we have it here. And what I would get is if I hit that tool tab, if you decide not to dock the, excuse me, dock the SubD tool tab, you would bring it up by clicking on the SubD tool tab along here. So let's, so we're working with our bracelet, right? Why don't we go to SubD, go to a primitive and bring up a torus. We all know what a torus is, right? It's a donut. I'm going to work in the middle. Here we go. And am I in? Okay, I'm in inches. So I think that, what did I decide? 3 1/4? Something like that. Let's go there. And there's our donut. Okay. So SubD, one of the things that's cool about oh yes, Derek.
So you said 3 1/4. Is that to the outs, like from inside
That
inside?
was actually the middle.
Okay, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact measurement that I was working with.
Got it. I was just
And
making sure.
I should have my calipers right here. My calipers aren't right here, and I don't want to walk away from the screen to go get them. But and by the way, that is very bad of me, Barb, not good. I should have my calipers with me. I should always have my calipers with me. They're almost always like sitting right here on my desk, but I took them to another part of the house to measure something and forgot to put them back. So anyway, as you can see, I'm in Ghosted. I like to be in Ghosted. Ghosted is good because it allows you to look at things semi-transparent. So cool things about SubD. With SubD, there are different ways to manipulate things now. Before, when we created something like this, we might use a sweep 2. We could make the same thing with the sweep 2 very easily. We could create a one circle, another circle, and then put a circle perpendicular between the two, sweep 2, and there it is. But then to edit that becomes onerous. And so the cool thing about creating something like this in SubD is we can now start to manipulate this form using the edges of it, the faces, or the vertices. And when I turned on sub-objects for my selection filter, you now see that I've got points, vertices, curves, edges, and surface faces. If I turn off sub-objects, those options disappear. But they are here in my in our SubD tools. Okay, we've got there's objects, there's edges, there's edge rings, there's face loops. Then we also have edges, faces, and vertices. We can also do that here. You see, by clicking on vertices here, it turned off everything but vertices. What are vertices? Vertices are where these edges connect. Wait a minute. We should be able to just get some vertices here. Okay. They're little points. But if I manipulate those points, like let's say here in the right viewport, what happens? Let's scroll out a bit here. Okay, it's changing that form. And here we're going to make this ghosted too. But over here, we'll leave this one wireframe so we can see what's going on. All right, and then over here, if I can use Gumball to just create these shapes. Now that's kind of organic-y looking. Let's select 2 sets of them. And again, here we go. And now I'm going to turn on the ring or the edges, right? And look, it changed that selection filter over. And even if I didn't have selection filter up and I was just using these, I like having selection filter up for other reasons, but it's great to see what this tool does to selections. So now I'm on edges, I'm gonna double click. So what did I do there? I clicked on one edge, but then I double clicked, and that selects the entire ring. So here I'm gonna go and make this whole thing a little smaller. And we're going to look at that. Okay. So this is getting definitely a little less donut looking, huh? We can now, let's try and see what we get with faces. So here's a face. A face is what's created by a series of edges. It's kind of like a surface, but it's also part of a larger whole. And if I move this, okay, if I just take that face and pick it up, you see how the whole rest of our form changes to make that a smooth transition rather than a hard transition. And this is where just our strictly NURBS modeling has been making life difficult for us up to this point. And this is where SubD really shines. When you're manipulating a form and you want it to continue to look reasonably smooth, there's also ways of creating with SubD. So I have a face here. See this little dot? That little dot on the gumball means extrude. And I don't know, I guess you guys probably all know that if you create like a rectangle and you click on it, oh, yeah, hang on, let me turn off sub objects and let's, no, that did have sub objects off. Let's turn off that. And we're gonna go back to curves and edges, right? So we're gonna click on that. Oh, wait, that's sub object. So it isn't just when you're working with SubD that this sub object makes a difference. If you keep up your selection filter and you turn on sub object, now you saw me draw this rectangle. It's a rectangle. It's a closed curve. But if I have sub objects up and I have just the one select, if I click on just one edge, it'll select just that one edge, just that one. So let's turn off sub objects, because I want to show you about extrude on gumball. Maybe you guys remember this. But when I click on this and I have gumball and there's this little dot, that means I can extrude. Now, does it create a solid? No, it just creates a surface. But that's a pretty powerful tool. And gumball is really helpful for a lot of things. I like to show you guys some of the tricks with gumball here and there. But so we're going to get rid of this. We're going to turn back on sub objects and we're going to go back to faces. And I'm going to select that face again. And I notice that I have this here. What happens? So if we take that dot and pull it out, look what happened here. I'm going to actually change the color of this. And if I recall correctly, this is not the, let me change this color to a lighter blue, because I want you to see what's going on here. Is that, and sorry, my zoom's in the way, so I'm like manipulating around there. What you can see here is that when we hit that dot and did an extrude, it created a whole new ring of faces and edges and vertices. So if I turn on those edges and I go here, I have a whole new set. Okay, I've got edges along the edge here, and I created a protuberance. And that's kind of one of the more powerful things too, is that with SubD, often when you're making something, instead of like with Rhino, where we would start with some curves and then create a surface and then maybe, connect our surfaces, or start with solids and Boolean union them together or use Boolean difference. With SubD, one of the most powerful things is we can manipulate the form itself to create new forms. And that's why these just basics, if I do a primitive, say a box, right? And we're gonna just do that here to here, and then over in the other viewports, we're just gonna go here. So you can see the box, first of all, most of the SubD things are just slightly more rounded. They're just nicer forms in that they're more visually easy on the eyes, and they're also easier to print. You know that when we print really hard edges with a 3D printer, those sharp edges don't come through anyway. So usually we need to fillet things in order to make them print better, in order to make them be more, forms that are a little more visually pleasing. So here we've got the edges. Again, double click on that edge, I'll be able to select the whole ring. Remember with gumball, if you hold down shift while you're using any of those scales, it'll scale the entire piece. And here we go. So now we've got vertices. We can turn on vertices. Let's see, there we are. Let's take just this one vertices. Vertex actually is the singular. And then we'll move this one up or out. Let's move that one out this way. All right, so we're just like, this is just playing around with SubD, and I suggest that you go and play around with SubD if you haven't already. As I had mentioned to one of the people in the breakout rooms, is that SubD is relatively new to Rhino. It's only been in part of Rhino for 1 year now. It was part of a beta version prior to that, but it's officially become part of Rhino with Rhino 7, and Rhino 7 came out last December of 2020. So we're looking at only a year into this. So you're not seeing as many tutorials and lessons, but please do go out and look at them. This is just basics of manipulating a SubD, right? And I'm going to stop with that. I'm going to delete that. And so one of the things that, actually I'm going to undo that extrusion, because I want to take a look now at another really powerful thing. So this could make a possibly pretty good bracelet. Let's go to edges and make it just a little bit bigger. It's only like 2 inches there. It really needs to be a little teeny bit more there. Okay. Yeah, just a touch over 2 is good for me. So let's assume that this is roughly the form we want for our bracelet, but now we want to add some sort of a texture, etc. to that. What I'd like to do here is see what happens with flow along surface. And I'm assuming that you've seen the flow along surface demos and etc. But I want to see what we can do here in terms of creating a flow along surface so that we can use this as the base for a bracelet that is not so solid. So let's start with a basic. Let's use a solid sphere. I tend to be a sphere person. So we're going to use one here. I'm going to hold down the shift because I want it there. And now I'm going to use the array command. And actually, this is a good place for, I'm going to take off sub objects. This is a good place for, later on, we'll be looking at some Grasshopper. But for right now, we're going to, oh goodness, okay, we need the surfaces, poly surfaces. My selection filter had just deselected everything. Now we're going to do array. Just basic array. Oh, not array polar, just array. Hit that. Now, what's it asking me? Number in the X direction. Let's start out with, let's go with 40. And then the number in the Y direction, that's up. Let's make that 15. And the number in the Z direction, let's keep that at 1. Okay, and so now I'm going to go, do I have my center of snap on? Let's see. Yeah. Well, we'll start at the top here. And so now I am pulling out this array. Doesn't need to be that big. I want these so that things will, we're going to just do this in just the top viewport so it's a little bit easier to deal with. I would like them all to touch. Okay, and that's, yeah. Wow, that's a lot. That's way more than I really need. And I'm going to get rid of like almost half of these. Okay, remember that powerful tool of dragging left to right only selects the things that are inside, and dragging right to left selects everything that is touched by your mouse. So I'm going to delete these, and I'm also going to delete some of these because these are kind of big. But all right, so now I have that. I also need a surface to start with them, but usually the best way to create a surface for our base surface is to start with what we have here. Now, SubDs, I haven't really experimented a lot with trying to do flow along surface on a SubD. I think that I might have to change it to a NURBS object, but first let's try it on here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use a command called create UV curve. And you can see that the prompt, okay, select surface, let's see. And it's not letting me do it to the SubD. Or SubDs, oh, wait, SubD, here we go. Ah, okay. So SubD, it's only letting us pick individual surfaces on this. So this is going to make this hard to do. Let's take our SubD then, escape. We're going to take that SubD and we're going to convert that to NURBS. I thought that was in here. Okay, we just have to do, and I think we just do 2 NURBS. Yeah, there we go. And our NURB options are delete object no, SubD options, faces packed, extraordinary vertex. No, let's just leave that alone. And we're going to hit enter. Okay. And there we go. As we pull off our SubD, and I think that that's the closed SubD, and here is our NURBS. So now let's see what our options are for creating the UV surface on this. Okay, select surface. Okay, now it's letting me select that entire surface. I'm going to hit enter. And here is where I get my, what will become my base surface. Okay, we're going to turn it this way. Yeah, I still had too many little spheres for this. But this is what we're going to do.
Wait, what command did you use to get the base surface?
Create UV curve.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So now I took that curve and I overlaid it on these spheres. So what I need now is that curve again. Where did it go? There it is. It's right there. And now what I need to do is it has to be a surface, because when we use the flow along surface command, we have to have a base surface and a target surface. So, and because our base surface is created from the UV curve that came from the target surface, things should relate. So we're going to go to surface. We're going to create a surface from a planar curve. And now we have that surface in there. What I'm going to do though, is I'm going to pick up all these little spheres. Let me pick them all up. Remember, if I drag from right to left, anything I touch becomes selected. Okay, I'm going to pick these up just a touch. And you can see that I didn't actually touch the surface, because in the top viewport, you can see that it's closer to the bottom. So these are actually going to float a little bit above, at least if my command works the way I want. And one of the things I want to tell you about flow along surface is, in order to really make the most of this tool, you have to take time. It's not going to work perfect the first time. It never does. And watch, it'll work for me now. Make me a liar. But you always have to play with the right place to click. You have to be experimental in how the objects you want to flow are relating to your surface, both the target surface and the base surface. So we have everything we need now to do this command. Here's our target. This is our base surface, and here are our objects. So we're going to type in flow along surface, hit enter, select the objects. So the objects we want to select are these. Again, I'm going to drag right to left, and just the things I touch are going to be selected. Select objects, and it says press enter when done. So that's what I'm doing. I'm pressing enter. And now I'm going to select near a corner. Let's select this corner. I'm going to remember that the next time when this doesn't work. So now, where do I select here? This is always the trickiest part, is the target. And you just have to experiment. That's why I said, if you're going to use this command, it's a powerful command. It's an amazing command, but you really have to take time to play with it. So I'm just going to start by clicking. To be honest, it's best not to do your clicking in the perspective viewport, because as you probably found at some point or another during CAD 2, sometimes when you're clicking on things in perspective, it's not, your cursor isn't where you think it should be. So I'm going to actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide this guy, our SubD. Escape. Let's take the SubD and I'm going to hide that. That's Control H. And let's go back to the full long surface command. And the reason I'm doing that is because I'm going to use the right viewport here. And in the right viewport, I'm going to select over here. I like to select in either the top, right, or front, one of my orthographic viewports, because they have a very straight on view of your objects and it's repeatable. But if I moved around my perspective viewport and I think I'm clicking here, and in the right viewport, it may appear that I'm clicking here, but it turns out that I'm really clicking like over in here because of the angle. So when you have to do something repeatable, it's best to try it in one of these flat on, straight on viewports, like the right, the front, top, bottom, left. We don't often have bottom and left up, but they're helpful too. And if you need to, you can bring them up. Okay, we're going to do this again. Flow along surface, base surface. I'm going to do this in the top viewport right there by that corner. It always wants you to click on a corner. Now over here in the right viewport, I want to just click right here, because that's a nice repeatable spot. Let's see what we get. This may take a little bit. I'm going to have a sip of water. Yeah, it's taken a while. But this is not a super uniform. Okay, there we go. It says creating meshes, so it succeeded. All right, but what did it do? Let's take a look at this. It looks like it stretched those spheres out. Wow, we really got to change the color of this. Select layer color. Let's make this a lot lighter. Yeah, look how that did that. Let's take this and move it to the another layer. So we can see it looks like those spheres were stretched out and moved along in this direction. Wow. Interesting. What happens if we hide this? It's hollow in the middle. It's I don't know. But it's not exactly what I want. So I'm going to undo and actually no, let's hide this. We're going to delete all these. And we'll bring that back up. Let's do it again. Because that's one of the things with flow along. Like I said, you really have to you got to spend time with this command. So I'm going to do flow along again. And I'm going to still select in this same corner for the, okay, so wait a minute. Oh, I didn't hit enter yet for the objects. So now it's asking for the base surface there. And now I'm going to, in the top viewport, I'm going to choose right here. Let's see what that does. And a lot of times I'll try to select somewhere near one of these iso curves. You know, these lines that help define the form. And the more intricate your target surface is, the longer it takes. Ooh, this is interesting too. Of course, it is way, way, way too fat. Interesting though. Now, I'll show you something else interesting about flow along surface and record history. If you're looking on my, here, I have record history on. I always keep record history on. I like it a lot. It's a great, great tool to use. I am going to squeeze these down a little bit. Wow, looks like my computer stopped. And it totally did. You can see I'm getting my my little wheel. It says wait. What it's going to do is it's going to update the flow along surface command now with the new forms that I just made out of these fat spheres. I just made them thinner. Okay, and it's now creating the meshes. Yep, and it says it broke history. And that's fine. And if we hide this, yeah, wow, it's kind of crazy. So are you guys getting the idea with flow along surface? I know there was one specific question about doing it on a SubD. It does not appear it's possible to do. So you have to create a NURBS object from the SubD. And we've done that. We've shown that it can work. Is this the best bracelet ever? No, not even close. But we can totally, now if I drag these down a little bit, let's see what we get. We're going to let this update one more time. Nope. Escape. Oof. I think I froze my computer again. In the meantime, any questions so far while my computer tries to catch up? There we go. Rendering mesh failure was canceled. Creating meshes. Okay. There we go. Wow, this is still a really lousy color. Let's go with something more gray. I'm in wireframe, no wonder. Let's go with ghosted. Okay, here we go. Now that looks more like. So you can see it took each of those spheres and stretched them out along the surface. Is this what I wanted? It's not completely unexpected. I actually sort of like how it moves and has these open spaces in between, because what I would do if I were to if this was my bracelet design is I would play a little bit more in here with these. Okay, so that's flow along surface, right? What do we think? Any questions at all? Okay. All right, I will, get a chance to meet with some of you one-on-one too later today, but all right, so we got the flow along surface, we've got SubD. So next up, we're going to do some Grasshopper. I'm going to actually, I want to create a new. Let's actually, I had this. Let's do this as a save as. Hold on. Is that our last one? Okay. All right. So we've got, we're going to do a save as here and call this flow along. Okay. And once this finishes saving, I'm going to, here we go. This is easy enough. Small object inches open. So here we go. We went over Grasshopper in CAD 1. Very, very rudimentary. I'm going to open it up. There's a little button here for it. You could also type Grasshopper in the command line. And let's talk a little bit about what we've got here. Here's some options for getting started with Grasshopper. We've got stuff about math. We've got polynomial graphing, which if you're a math geek, this is the place to be. Some other, basics for getting started with Grasshopper. There are a lot of Grasshopper videos out there. There's Grasshopper user groups. There's a lot of educational stuff on Rhino 3D, McNeil's site. There's a whole section for Grasshopper. One of the cool things with Grasshopper is its code. And what we have here is, this is a type of visual programming. And I hope I don't lose you guys. If you do feel lost, please just raise your hand. I don't expect you all to go and use this. As a matter of fact, I would be surprised if you did. In a way, it's sort of a distraction off of our basic 3D modeling. But because it is such a powerful tool, and because I did see a lot of sketches that were possibilities for using something like flow along surface with some interesting patterns, that's where Grasshopper really shines. Grasshopper really does a great job with creating patterns in random ways. And you can totally change these very easily using the programming. One of the things when Grasshopper first came about, and this I think is a really good way to think about Grasshopper, is it was called originally, before they decided to call it Grasshopper, explicit history. Now you watched what happened when I used record history in my own modeling. I use record history all the time. It's a very powerful tool because it doesn't require you to go back and do every single step in order to change parts of your design. Well, the guy who came up with Grasshopper said, well, suppose I could change more things in this history and be able to control this part without controlling this part, or change both of them in different ways. And that's how Grasshopper happened. So one of the cool things about Grasshopper too is that, this is code. So if we can put together a code and you use it, this is ways that we can all create something different, but yet using some of the same code. So I did put together a definition for Grasshopper, and I'm going to open it up now. Recent file, it's array random. Yeah, this is the one. Okay. So this has got, and you're probably all looking at this going, oh no. It's actually very logical. And I'm going to step through each bit of this with you so you can see. And the first thing I'm going to do actually is take all of this. I'm going to click on my middle mouse button, and I'm going to hide the previews for all this. And then I'll show the previews as we step through it. I think that, so I like to take, when I'm working in Grasshopper, I like to grab this and touch the side on the right. And then I take Rhino and I touch the side on the left. When I click back on the Rhino, gosh, I want to close that tutorial thing. Okay. Then I end up with a split screen. And you can see that that's. So the first thing that we need for this, and I'm going to go work on the top viewport to start, is a point. Because what we're going to do is we're going to create an array of dots in the shape of a curve. So first thing we'll do is we're going to make a box, a rectangular array. All right, and so I've got that. I'm going to set that to this curve. You can experiment with trying different shapes, but let's start with the rectangle. And I'm going to right click on this. This is a parameter. Okay, parameters come from here. And this parameter, if I was to create another one, I would just grab this. It says curve. I would drag it down and I would click on it and I would say set one curve. There we go, set one curve. Let's set this curve. I go over here to Rhino. I click on this and hit enter. And now, see how it's green? Oh, wait, did I set it on this guy? Yeah, I did. I set it on that one. All right, well, that's okay. We'll take this guy. We're going to delete this. And now we have this curve. This, you can see when I click off of that, this is gray. Over here in Rhino, and a lot of times it's you're going back and forth. So we've got the curve for when I click on here and this turns green, that means that this is selected over here. So I can see what that relates back to. This is a point. So what I need here is a point object. I'm going to take that. I'm going to just click on that and I'm going to put that at the origin 0, 0, 0, just because it's a convenient place. So we have a point there. So this is a point. Again, this also came from parameters. You can just go up there and drag it in. Another way to put things on the Grasshopper workspace is to just double click and start typing. It's kind of like the command line in Rhino, but it's right on your workspace. So, but here I'm going to set one point and I'm going to go over here to Rhino and click on it. And now that is set. Here we go. This curve here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to create an array. This command here, okay, is called rectangular array. And actually, where's my, I usually have a, there we go. See this little thing here? This, I like this. This is a little plugin for Grasshopper that allows you to see what each of your objects is. It's called, like, I don't know, spectacles or something. So we're going to create a rectangular array of points and in the shape of a cell. And the cell that we're using is a rectangle. Okay, let's see what happens if we used a different shape. Let's use the polygon, but we want a different number of sides. Let's go with 6. Okay, so now we got a polygon. Let's say we took this curve and set that to this curve instead. Yeah, it just moved it. Yeah, I'm not sure that that's a great thing because this is a rectangular array and not another shape of array. It probably just needs a rectangle. Let's undo that. So this guy needs to get sent back to this rectangular. Okay, so here we are. Now we have these things called numeric sliders. For those of you who did the bicycle thing last semester or in CAD 1. And if you took CAD 1 before we started putting Grasshopper in, then this is all going to be totally new to you. And don't feel like you have to fully understand what we're doing. But so this is asking for a input of an X and a Y count. X, as you know, is in this direction, Y is in this direction. So I can actually change the number of points in this array easily with the slider. Remember when we did the array in Rhino and we were just putting in, you know, we took that sphere and we arrayed it. Okay, if we wanted to change how many were in there, we'd have to run the command again. So here you can do something like this. Now, I have a rectangular array of points. Can I use different things other than a point? Probably, but that's for this one, because this is asking for geometry. It's not necessarily asking for just a point. But we're going to use that point to create other geometry, and you'll see that in a minute. So we've got that. Next, we're going to send this to a to a circle. Let's disconnect these. Wait a minute. I think I got a shift control disconnect. Yeah. No, wait. It's command control. I'm always picking the wrong. Well, yeah, I think I got to take it off over here. Whoop. All righty. Oh my goodness. All right. Where's that disconnect? All right. Well, so that what we're going to do is we're just going to add another a curve. Actually, no, we're going to go to the curve tab, and we're going to pull up a circle. All right, we're going to put that here, and we're going to connect that there. Now, each of those, now, because we did it as a plane, each of those points now has a circle around it, because what the circle was asking for is a base plane. We can change how big these are with another numeric slider, right? I'm going to double click, and with a numeric slider, you can just start typing numbers. So let's say I wanted, and what it's asking for is the radius. Remember the radius, not the diameter. So we're going to go 1.5. Okay. So that means that my numeric slider goes from 1 to 5. I'm going to plug that into there. And right now it's at 1 because that was probably the default. Now I'm making it bigger. Oof. Maybe let's double click on this again. Let's make this 0.25 ... 3 because we don't need it that big. Let's go here, double click and okay, we need it to be floating point numbers, not integers. An integer is a whole number, not 1.5, but more like 1, 3, 5, 7. So here we're going to make this 0.25. And we're going to make the max 3. Okay, we're going to hit OK. So now we can make these smaller or bigger. All right, that's kind of cool, but right now all we have is a whole bunch of circles, right? So with those circles, what can we do with them? We can also have polygons, and this is where I'm going to step you through the other stuff that I have. Instead of me just making new ones, I'm going to go through what we have. This is some math that has to happen here. We have, we're going to start changing the shapes of these, the sizes of these with the radius, with this random command. And what happens with this random command is you put a list in it that goes from 0 to 1, right? And you have these sliders over here. You've got 0.1 to, oh, actually this goes to 2. And they are creating this domain of numbers that gets read into this. It's asking for a range of numbers. Then the length, this geometry is going in as a list. And you can find out what's happening in different points of Grasshopper with a panel. Okay, and if we put down a panel right here, we can find out what this geometry is that's coming out. And look, it's got this list. And this list is the locations of those points. All of these points are in this list. So when I send this to a to this command here that checks a list length, and we go into this random command, we can shake it up with this number here. This just changes what the seed is. And then this will take random numbers and change them here and change the radius randomly. Meanwhile, and actually we can take this and just, oh wait, that's what I want to do. I want to just move this. We're going to take that stream gate out of there. That's kind of like a switch. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, goodness. Zoom is in the way. I'm going to minimize this for a minute. We're going to move this over here. Because what I need to do is go here, over to here. Okay, see how it disconnected there? Because we're going to now make this visible. And what this did was it took, and I'd like to really, if I can, make Grasshopper a little bigger so we can see what's happening in Rhino. And you can see that what you do in Grasshopper, because it's connected to the things in Rhino, you can change what's happening in Grasshopper. Now here it is randomly changing the size of these circles. Okay, and no, that isn't what I'm. And if I wanted to go and change the array itself, these are objects I can then use for my flow along surface later. So for instance, if I wanted to use, instead of a point, I could go into solid and use maybe, let's make it an ellipsoid on the center. Let's make a tiny, tiny little ellipsoid here. And let me see, I gotta finish it up in the other. In a way, it's sort of like what I had before. But we're gonna take that, and instead of having that point be the geometry that we put into here, let's go here to, it's not primitive, it is params, and it's just a geometry. There we go, we can find things here. Geometry. We're going to put that here. We're going to set this with one geometry here. Right, enter. And we're going to take this geometry and put it in instead. Look at this. Okay. Now with that point, we now have that instead of a point. So we're not able to manipulate that because this was asking for a circle. But there are ways, but we can use other commands to, let's say we wanted to scale this, and then we connect that to the random command. I don't think that at this point you need to fully understand Grasshopper, like I was saying. I really don't. We're going to undo. Oh, no, wait, let's go over here to Grasshopper and undo. Okay, then we go back over here and undo. Yep, anyway. But I think that this is a good way for you to learn how to create patterns. Okay, now over here, this stream gate thing that I had, this is actually a way of deciding circles are boring. Let's be real. Okay, just plain circles. Well, they are and they aren't, but we've got all these circles. This is really cool. I could make surfaces out of them. I could extrude them. You know, we have a lot of these circles that are all randomly intersecting with one another. We can also have some of them randomly disappear. Here we have this random command leading out to here, and we're gonna, first of all, we'll go here, we'll show that. And that's a polygon part. The stream gate goes to the plane. This switch allows you to switch between circles. and polygons. So now I have 5-sided polygons. And here, this is reduction. So we can take this and we can reduce some of what's in here. Like that's a really dense pattern. But here is how we would shake up that reduction too. And basically, the math behind this is that by moving this slider, you can change what's available. And then by moving these sliders over here, whoops, sorry, all the way back to this, you can change the size of this, what you're working with. So if we went and back in Rhino here, and we're going to minimize Grasshopper for a minute. We're going to maximize Rhino. If we had our, let's say we had our torus that we created, let's use a Rhino, a NURBS torus here. And we've got that again. And we wanted to use the create UV curve. Okay, again. Oh, wait, what did I do? Misspell, create UV curve. Okay. And we select this surface. We hit enter. There's that UV curve. Okay, look at that. So here I can go back to Grasshopper. Let's go back to Grasshopper. All we have to do is hit the little Grasshopper thing. And let me move this over so I can see what I'm doing. And here I can move my slider. Oof, gee whiz. We might have to like edit this slider. So I'm going to double click here. And the max here is 25. So we're going to make that 30. We're going to hit OK. And now I'm going to go 30. That's good. And now I'm going to move this down to like there. Cool. Now we're going to go over here and play around. We've got a number slider. We can change we can make these triangles. And we can reduce them by a bit. And let's see, this is our randomness. But you know what? Those points are really annoying me now. So they come from this. You can tell because when I clicked on this command, these showed up green. So I'm going to click that middle mouse button and I'm going to hide this. All right, so that's neat. I could use these to with a curve Boolean command and then extrude them to make solids and then have them flow along on this surface. I could have them I could, change the segments on the polygon, right? We've got these squares. We can also put a radius on this if we wanted. They can be kind of rounded. We can make them triangles, right? With this radius, and what's going on here? Input parameter failed. Oh, okay. That's because we have the stream gate shut to the, and so this is the beginning of a definition. This definition is in the CAD 2 folder. I'm going to stop right there and see if you guys have any questions. I'm sure you do. This is a lot of information. I expect a lot of it to be above your head. And that's not meant in any way as a derogatory statement, but that I know that this can be very confusing. This is programming, but because several of you were really interested in patterns and they were very random looking patterns. And I felt that it was important to give you guys tools that can generate random patterns. Now we can change around in these, what kind of geometry you're creating, how you're manipulating it. I do have another example here that I wanted to show that, so right now over here in Rhino, we're going to change to a different layer. We're going to get rid of all the default. Let's go back to Grasshopper. So over here in Grasshopper, I have another, this is another definition that's in the same file. We're going to take this and we're going to hide it all, right? So it's not there. It's still there. It's still running, but you just can't see it. Next up, we have this here. It's the same sort of thing. I'm going to show you. But again, we have to have that rectangle over here in Rhino. Wait a minute. Let's put Rhino halfway on the screen again, like we had, and move this guy over. So let's bring that back up because we needed these guys. Let's move them to this layer. Change object layer. There we go. We're going to hide the default again. So now we're going to take this point, and you see this little flag? That means there's a problem, and it says a reference point could not be found in the Rhino file. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to right click. I'm going to set this point to, and you see how over in Rhino here it's asking me point objects to reference. Click on that. Okay, great. I hit enter. That point is now gray, so that means I've got geometry in there. Same with this curve. We're going to put that curve there. Set one curve. We're going to click on that, and here we go. We've got our. Once again, this one works the same way. Here's that rectangular array again. And and again, we can just change the size of it with the numeric sliders. Great. So what we've got here is the same sort of thing. I'm going to take this. We're going to show it. But what's going on is we want to hide these points. And where's my, hold on. Curves closest. Oh, I think I still have to, well, anyway, here, let's show you. This one wants a curve. So this curve is what we call like a magnet. I'm going to use a control point curve. I'm going to just draw a curve straight through this array. And we're going to connect that to this curve here. So now that is going into here. And what this one does here is it will create, it calculates what the closest point is to that curve out of these curves. And here's where our, is this one? Yes. So here's where we have a polygon again. Now for our polygon component here, we can choose how many segments we have. I'm going to zoom in here. We were using this in the other definition just above. We can change how many sides. We can also change if it has a fillet. Here we go. We're doing fillets. We don't want a whole lot of fillet. And then what we have here with this curve is we now have some various math here that we have to have in order to use in order to take the list that comes out of here as far as the distance. We have to change it to numbers between 0 and 1. And this will remap the numbers to make the items that are closest to this curve smaller, and the items that are farthest from the curve larger. Now, but those numbers are based on this here, this domain, a construct domain. And what we can do is we can change these numbers in this numeric slider, and I can make the numbers that are farther larger or smaller, and make the ones that are closer larger, like that. Now, you can begin to see, now, suppose we took this, this section here, where we're randomizing and reducing. We can take these two pieces here. And just like in Rhino, you can select things, you can use Shift to select multiple things, and you can drag and tap Alt and create copies. Now, in this case, we created copies. I'm going to move them over here. And this polygon is going to get put into here. And it disconnected those other ones. And here's where we're going to use the random reduce. It should reduce. Why is it not reducing? What else goes in here? Circle, the polygon, the reduction in the seed. Oh, you know what? When I moved that, it was off. Let's turn it on. Here we go. So here's where, oh yeah, I forgot. We have to turn off this preview now. And then if we're going to reduce, see, one of the things with Grasshopper is the commands that are happening are always happening. So let's get rid of those. Hold on a second. We're going to go back here to this rectangular array. We're going to take that. We're going to hide those. Okay, that's better. And then we've got the polygons. We've got 5-sided. That's the fillet. Here are our polygons. Oh, okay. So this has to get hidden. Wait a minute. And then the random reduce. Oh, wait a minute. No, it doesn't get hidden. Well, anyway. So you can see here. All right. Have we got any randomly reduced? All right. Well, I'm not sure why that part of the function is not working. I'll have to play with it. But so this is another way of creating patterns. And again, like I said, we can run through these. We can make them smaller, larger, change these around. These are ways of creating interesting patterns. And I probably babbled on enough about this, but as I said, this Grasshopper file is in the CAD 2 folder on the server. I'm going to stop now. I'm going to stop sharing. And let's get back to, let me see, was there anything in the chat I missed? Okay, no. All right. Any questions? Are there any of you who would like to use this, or did I just scare everyone away? Eric, okay, he's got his hand up. At least you want to try and use it. Okay. All right, I am going to stop recording now. I'm going to keep recording for a minute because I forgot something very important. Let me minimize this. So one thing, let's say I get this pattern where I want it. Actually, let me make these a little bit smaller here. And the ones that are closer, I'd like them to be like this. And so maybe I want to do these as like holes. All right. And this, yeah, or I'm going to play with this with the curve Boolean. That'd be fun. So the last thing that you need to do before you go in, so you can't edit these in Rhino. If I go into Rhino and I go, oh, I want to, so you can't select them. You can't do anything with Grasshopper objects in Rhino. Now I can change my curve. As a matter of fact, that's one of the coolest things ever here is if I take my curve and I grab one of the points. Come on, I should be able to edit this curve. I made it in Rhino. I can edit it in Rhino. Here we go. I'm moving it. I can also like, I'm gonna hit F10 so this,
Barb, are you supposed to be sharing your screen right
Oh,
now?
shit. Sharp. I didn't say that. Sure. Yes, I am supposed to be sharing
It's
my
all
screen.
good.
I am so sorry. Yes, that's right. Where is my screen? And I should have looked over at my other, let me find. I appreciate that, Derek, for jumping in. Share screen. Okay, here we go. So let's say I've got this great pattern now and I'm able to grab these, I can move this curve. Okay, and I can play with it and, you know, scale it using Gumball, and that's cool. So now let's say I have a pretty cool, this is what I want, right? Let's just assume that's what I want. What I have to do now is I have to go to the end of this and bake it out. Is this gonna bake? Let's see. Nah, I don't think that that one is exporting the polygons correctly. So let's bake out this. All right, and what it's gonna ask me to do, what it should have asked me to do, is that when I go now and hide it, they should be in Rhino. And actually, there they are. They're in Rhino. Now I can, oh, because I baked it twice. Oh, good, Barb. Undo. Over here, undo. And let's see whether now these are, yes, because they're red. Well, we've got two sets. But this is what I now have, all these curves. Now I can take my Grasshopper and I can close it. Do I want to save the changes? Yeah, I do. Okay, that's fine. So now Grasshopper is there. I'm going to close or just hit the arrow. We're going to make this big. And now I've got all these curves. And again, like I said before, we could do a flow along onto our bracelet, but I can also like go here, and I don't want this guy. So I'm going to hide him, Control H. Oh, undo. I meant to just grab him and Control H hide. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to select all of these. I'm going to deselect the curve. And I'm going to go curve Boolean. And if I hit outside, oh, escape, no. Curve Boolean, enter. Click inside regions to keep. There we go. Okay, that came out kind of cool. I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to move that out of the way. All right, this might be really fun. I could extrude part of these. I could have this be intersected with a mesh underneath or another pattern. But I wanted you to see how you get these objects out of Grasshopper, because that is super important. It's one thing to sit and play around with Grasshopper and create interesting patterns, but it's also important that you're able to get them into Rhino where you can actually create something three-dimensional. So let's say I took these two things and I went solid, extrude planar curve, straight, and let me go here, and we could totally create something here. All right. Let's go to ghosted. And there we go. So that's the beginning of something. All right. Yeah. Now I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And let's see, what do we got in the chat? Is that the same? Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Derek. I just now saw the chat. Chat is really tough when I'm working on the screen because I don't often see it. Great. Okay, good. All right, I'm going to stop there now.